joyeuse and I'm la Canadienne française, and in this video I'm going to be talking to you about the anglicization of the French Canadians, how that's a real thing, how I was actually anglicized, and how my family was too. So even though I grew up fully French Canadian, I'm 100% French Canadian. French is my mother tongue, and by the way, being French Canadian is not a language, it's a full ethnicity with a shared history, and I may talk about it in a future video. But French was my mother tongue. I grew up in Quebec in a small village with the beautiful French Canadian traditions. It's just an amazing French Canadian community, which I would have never received anywhere else. And yet I was anglicized, and my whole family. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters. Yes, my parents had 9 children. And out of us all, I'm the only one still in Quebec. Out of us all 8 of my siblings, even many of them who spoke French the majority of their life, are all speaking English and barely know any French at all. And fully anglicized, our family, yet we are 100% French Canadian, descended from the French Canadian settlers, from Normans, from Normandy. And like on my father's side, they were the founders, the original settlers in Quebec City, as well as founders of multiple towns like Les Écureuils, Château-Richer. And on my mother's side, they were the first surviving settlers in 1653 who settled Montreal or Montreal. And so I'm going to talk about that, how this happened, how this is an actual real thing. I know a lot of English Canadians think that this is not a real thing, and I want to make 3 videos in English for English Canadians as well as anyone who's interested who speaks English. And this one about the anglicization of the French Canadians and how I'm living proof of that, my story and what happened. I also want to do a video all about French Canadians, who we are, how we're an ethnicity, and all of that. A lot of things that the government has not told you in school and has caused a lot of divisiveness within Canada towards us. And I'll probably answer the question as well in another video about why we want our own country, why we want to separate, why we never wanted to be a part of this dominion of Canada or anything like that, and how Britain has stolen our culture, our identity, our history, and tried to replace us. Now, this is a lot of things that a lot of Canadians have no clue about, and I feel like if you have an understanding, but it's important that you know who we are, who you are in relation to us, and how, what is our history, why we are our own people with our own history, and why we want our own country, and we want it back. But first, the anglicization of the French Canadians. Now, that is a real thing, and I'm living proof of that. So like I said, my family is 100% French Canadian. Both of my parents were born within Catholicism as well. My dad was born in Montreal. My mom was born in, I believe, Longueuil. And they met and they married. My mom was 17, my dad was 21. So what happened there? How did we go from total French Canadians who only ever spoke French to having so many kids? And most of them leave. At one point I did leave, and now I'm back, and I'm here to restore everything that was lost, to protect my family line, protect my identity and my culture and my people and my country. Quebec is my country. And by the way, I may say things that may not be politically correct, but they are true. I also want to make a video about some history that has been long forgotten. A lot of people don't realize. I have this incredible family history. I'm so blessed that one side of my family were nobles. I'm descended directly from Knights Templar. And so we have a family history that has been kept and preserved, and a lot of people don't realize the truth about it, and it's very controversial, but it is true. And I might go in a video about that. If it's something that YouTube won't take down, I'll be very careful. But literally all I want to do is preserve my own family history. I don't like that it's being changed, squashed, and altered, and that they're trying to replace us. I am so grateful for my people and my culture. But I also love the rest of Canada also. I just don't think that we should be together. I think we should have been left alone. You have to take us. You could have just gone where nobody was yet. Just go there. There's plenty of space. But anyways, the Anglicization of the French Canadians is a real thing. Believe it or not, the Canadian government has taken the bones of my ancestors out of the ground and tested their DNA and published them. They want to know who they really are. And yes, they found out that it has been confirmed. So when my family history has a history that's been passed down, it has been genetically confirmed. For example, that Toussaint Dussault is 100% Norman. He was a Knights Templar. He was part of the family that was part of the, Crusades and everything. And that he himself was still considered Knights Templar and had been knighted. He's knighted. So they were able to confirm all this through genetics, through DNA and all of that. We also have really good record keeping. So there's not just my family history, but the records. The French, especially the Norman French peoples, were very good at record keeping. And a lot of people have no clue that when they came here, they had already been coming here for hundreds of years. They knew how to come here. They had maps. They were coming, they're cod fishing, they're doing things like that. They had some settlements, but many did go back to trade their cod. And different things that they had. But they had been coming here, like my ancestors had been coming here. They had been coming here for hundreds of years, and I will go into that in another video. So first, the Anglicization of French Canadians. So here's my story. All right, so what happened was there's a huge push. So I was in school. I grew up in the school system, in the government school system. I grew up with American television and all of that stuff. But at the same time, I was in a small village, this little village, Saint-Polycarpe, in the Soulanges area. And it was such a beautiful community. French Canadians, like absolutely, totally French Canadian people in a small village, plus all the farmers. And that allowed me to have a normal childhood. I was able to partake in my own culture. They would give me all kinds of, at the time, I guess they were, what do you call this, vinyl for music. So I would love dancing to the French Canadian traditional folk music. I took part in all the different traditions and cultures throughout the year. I loved growing up hearing the church bells ringing every Sunday, every holiday, every multiple times a day. I loved growing up where everything was so family oriented, big families everywhere, and people, we were French Canadian. It's not just a language, it was a full culture, it's an ethnicity. These were my people and they treated me as part of their family. That's how I grew up. But when my parents met in 1971, they had this huge, I don't know, like in Montreal at the time, there was this big push that French people should be English, that it shouldn't be the English people learning French, that French people should really, you're trying to preserve your language, your culture, your people is ridiculous. They tried to make us feel like the people, like French Canadians, were inferior with a pathetic history, that you're all racist and you're all nationalists, so therefore you're evil. There's this huge push for that, and I know exactly where it came from. In fact, you can actually go to these people's websites, and I can't name them because YouTube will take me down, but you can go to their website. They have their own newspaper in that country, and they specifically have a whole thing about Quebec and how they've tried to push through using Ottawa, the people in Montreal, to be anglicized. So my parents had all of this going on, but they still spoke French, and they're still Catholic, and they're still part of the French Canadian communities. And there's all this mass immigration coming in already from other cultures. And so that was 1971, and my parents decided to leave Catholicism. So there's this huge, trying to get everyone, the best thing they thought was the best push that these people, this country, so this is other country interference, and again, I can't name them, but the evidence is found online and they are proud of it. So anyways, they had this huge push in the 70s about trying to get French Canadians anglicized, get them to lose their identity, lose their culture, forget their history, and their biggest way to do that is they realized they're holding on to Catholicism. That's the glue that's sticking this all together. We can't make them forget and accept what we're trying to do unless we get rid of their faith. So there was that big push. So my parents ended up converting to an American religion. So this American religion opened themselves up into Montreal, the very first branch of it. I'm not going to name it again because of controversy. But they opened up, there's this an American English speaking only. My parents decided to join it. And my mom was 17, my dad was 21. This religion, like they could have joined so many, like there's so many English churches being pushed up, there's English schools, all this stuff going on. And in response, Quebec, the province, ended up issuing laws to protect the children, to protect our identity and our culture and our children. I'm so grateful for that. But nonetheless, my parents were starting to learn English. So when I went to church every week, it was in English. But my life was all French. And eventually, by the time I was a teenager, so my parents were kind of teeter-tottering between being fully English and, you know, keeping some French Canadian things. Like my grandmother, she was not having any of this at all. My parents had to maintain some French Canadian traditions, some French Canadian things. Another push that happened in the 70s that my parents fell for, and this religion pushed at the time, which now they're kind of trying to reverse, say, hey, we're actually Christian too. But nonetheless, at the time was don't celebrate Christmas, downplay it, you know, because Christmas was such an important cultural event, amongst many other things. But Christmas, French Canadian styles, is a little bit different. And so my parents stopped celebrating Christmas. I didn't grow up with Christmas at home. They still did New Year's for some reason, but not Christmas. And we still we'd go to Quebec with my grandma. I'd go to my grandma's house for Christmas sometimes, but we didn't do Christmas, if that makes sense. So this is kind of how I grew up with this, you know, beautiful community, French Canadian. My extended family, my grandma was really close to. I had my language, I had my culture, I had my people, I knew who I was. And then my parents were really, really into this anglicization part. That no, we have to leave the traditions, leave the faith, we gotta speak English. It's the only way you're gonna succeed in life. Like, we gotta stop and get rid of everything that's French Canadian. The time is over, get on with the times. We've gotta evolve. Like, they were totally falling for all this. So then I was born. My parents ended up having a lot of kids anyways, which is traditional for French Canadians, which I'm grateful for because I'm here. I was a later child. If they didn't have lots of kids, I wouldn't be here. So I am so grateful I'm here. And I loved having lots of siblings. And I believe in big families. I love kids. Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. Here I was growing up like this. And then there's all these laws put in place, like I said, to protect the French Canadians, culture, the people, the children. And I am really grateful for that. But my parents found a way around it. And so basically I went to school in French until secondary school. So in my secondary school, I went to Hudson High School. So I guess it was more like grade 6, so the year before. Went to Hudson Elementary and then Hudson High School. And this was English. And here I was French. And like, I spoke English with an accent. I did speak some English at the time. I did speak English, but it was definitely not my first language. And I was put in this school. And how did my parents do that? They were both French and all this. They found a way around it so that they could get the cards that allowed French people to go to an English-speaking school. That is not usually allowed. That, I don't know, they somehow found a way to get us those cards. And at that point, I was able to go to an English school, so my parents did that. So now here I was in English school, where now French was seen as second language. History was taught different. That was very interesting to see the differences in how history was taught in the Canadian curriculum versus the Quebec curriculum. I could tell you, one of them's being untrue. One of them's lying to you. But definitely history was taught in a way to make you think, as a French Canadian, you're less than. And you really should just allow the other cultures to swallow you up because your culture sucks. and you're just have a sad, evil history. And so we're used to that. Like the English Canada is starting to see it a little bit now, because now the government, Ottawa, is turning on them there as well. But before it was us. And, you know, at one time, Quebec City was over half English, and now it's back to mostly French. But, you know, the French had to make the English uncomfortable. They were trying to get rid of us in so many ways. Farms were being burnt down. They were stealing the land and giving it to the British. And if they will do that to us, or they tried to do that to us, they tried to destroy us in so many ways. And I'm not joking. They tried to burn down our farms. They tried to kill us, to kick us out, make us uncomfortable. They moved a whole bunch of Acadians away, just migrate them away to where they never were. Like Acadians founded and settled some areas as well. And they had also were founders in New France. But anyways, I'm not an Acadian, I'm French Canadian, which is different. But so I was anglicized, and in 1995, there was the big referendum. I was secretly hoping that yes would win. I ended up staying up all night watching the elections and was very, very excited when it looked like the yes was going to win, and then really disappointed when last minute it seemed like no one. And something just didn't feel right. I felt like there was cheating going on. Like I just didn't feel like this was an honest referendum. But anyways, it is what it is. And after that, that was the nail in the coffin for my parents. Believe it or not, my parents decided to vote yes. So we're in St. Quebecois, my parents voted yes. Why did they vote yes? They just said, well, you know, they think, they were kind of like, they fell for all the crap about Anglicization, but at the same time, there was a part of them that wished, that longed for their culture, that longed for their peoples, that longed for, you know, what we have here. It was kind of like there's this little bit that they were holding on to, even though they had left so much and were being so anglicized. But after the referendum, my parents, so why did they vote yes? They told me they voted yes to see what would happen. They said if they vote yes and it separates, then we will go back to being French Canadians. And if they vote no and it stays a part of Canada, that's the sign that we should just believe what the federal government is saying, that we should just believe that the French Canadians have no right to exist independently, and that we should just get rid of our culture and our people and our language and everything else and just let the greater peoples, you know, just succumb to it, just like fall over and let them just take you. So that just was my parents' attitude. They were like, okay, let's just see, because they're kind of teeter-tottering there. So my parents, after the referendum, they saw that it was no. They're like, okay, English only at home. So we only spoke English at home all of a sudden. All of a sudden, everything was English. But yeah, that's how it was in my home growing up. My parents absolutely, at that point, they were discouraged. They're like, okay, we're done. French Canadians is kaput. We don't have a right to fight. We don't have a right to exist. We should just accept our demise, roll over. Britain won, you know. We're just gotta be whatever they want us to be. I didn't fall for that, but my parents did. And in this religion, though, at this point, I was only allowed everything English, so I had to sneak. I would sneak out so that I could be a part of my French Canadian culture. Luckily, despite all this, the village that I grew up in, the people, they took me as their own. They included me in everything. And it's like I was their family just because I lived there, and I was also French Canadian, despite what my parents were doing. So there was that, and they knew I went to English school and all this stuff, and I was so bullied by all kinds of people. When the English were bullying me because I was French, and they're always telling me how dumb I am and all this sort of thing. But it is what it is as a community, as you know, I've largely accepted, largely. I'm just so grateful that I got that experience, and I was grateful that that there were people trying to protect our culture and our language and our people and our land. But my parents fell for it. So like I said, they went full like hook, line, sinker in anything Anglicization. So this church that they chose, this American religion, and it's American religion, we just, that, he's like, that's our culture. That's it. So we weren't allowed to speak French. When I said, well, I want to go to a French church, they're like, no. So yeah, I had to sneak around. Isn't that weird? I had to sneak around to do good things. But anyways, yeah, but I nonetheless for a little while fell into it. We got so all encompassed, and I started being that teetering. And the reason why the teetering even happened was because in this religion at the time, we were having arranged marriages. So now that only a certain level does arranged marriages, not the lowest, but either way, I had an arranged marriage with somebody from Ontario who was English speaking, and he also forbade me to have my French culture and my French everything, and I couldn't even like contact my French relatives anymore. Like it was awful way he was like, what that was like. We ended up leaving the whole thing, and then remarrying. But the thing is, I lived in different provinces. I lived in Ontario, Brampton, London. You can just imagine what Brampton was like. I also lived in Alberta, southern Alberta. I also lived in British Columbia, on Vancouver Island, in Victoria, and in the Cowichan Valley. So that's, I lived in all these places, and I never once felt at home within that religion, within any of those cities or towns. I never felt like I belonged. People showed me I didn't belong. No matter how hard I tried to be anglicized, I knew I was not, I was different. I'm French Canadian. I'm not like them. And yeah, just no matter what, no matter how hard I tried, I never ever once felt at home. Even though I purchased a home, even, you know, farming, like all of that, I never once felt at home outside of Quebec. The moment I came back to Quebec with my children, as a widow, you know, I immediately came home. This is home. Immediately, I was like, this is home. This is where I belong. This is my home. This is my people. This is my culture. I'm never leaving it again. And my children said they felt the same way. They never felt at home wherever we went. They always felt a little different. And then when we arrived here, before I even said anything, they said, this is home and I never want to leave. So the Anglicization of French Canadians is a real thing. This push to make us English, to make us American, to make us, you know, if they can't get us Canadian happy for English, they want us American. That's the first step, right? To make us think we shouldn't have as many children, to make us think our traditions are foolish and old, to make us think that our history is there's not much there, or that we are not capable of anything, which is insane. I mean, we were surviving here when the Americans down south with better weather were dying, couldn't even know how to survive on their own. It took them many generations to figure it out, but we were surviving, thriving, without dying due to the weather. And we had been coming here for hundreds of years before 1600. In fact, there's evidence in Normandy as well as here, but especially in Normandy, that the Normans had been coming here. And in my family history, we had been coming here since about the 12th century. So a lot of people don't know that part. It's controversial, and there was no one else here at that time. But anyways, I'll talk about that in another video. The thing is, Anglicization is a real thing. My parents tried to Anglicize me. They were being Anglicized due to a big push of another country's government interference into Ottawa to try to Anglicize Quebec and get the French Canadians to just allow mass immigration, mass replacement of their people, culture, language, everything they can, to get them to leave Catholicism or Christianity. A lot of people forget about the Huguenots. The Huguenots is a real thing, real people. Not everyone is Catholic, the majority was, but not everyone was. There were the Huguenots. But anyways, that's another thing in history you could talk about. But But yeah, and my parents did it, and they tried, and now guess what? They had 9 children. 8 of them barely speak any French. They're outside of Quebec. They have no interest in continuing the French Canadian traditions and history and anything. They think it's kind of cool that they're 100% French Canadian and we know our family history, and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, but it's nothing that they're passing down. But to me, after my experience of being so anglicized, my experience of growing up in Sainte-Marie-Carte in this beautiful French Canadian village, and also having all of this anglicization onto me by my parents, by the government, by the school system, by the like CBC, like all this. When I turned on CBC when I was younger, it was just, to me, it was all just propaganda. And I could see it, and I felt like someone was ripping me away from my family, my history, who I am. And we are amazing as French Canadians. We're amazing. And if you're English and you're watching this, which is the point of this video, it's why I'm speaking English, we, like, all of those Canadian symbols, even the fact that you even call yourselves Canadians, I mean, that's us. You took everything from us and then took it as your own, and then you're taught to hate us, or to think that we're selfish, or to think that we are just leeches, think that we don't deserve to be independent, that we're just a bunch of racist nationalists and things like that, because we want to protect our culture and our ethnicity and our land and our people and our way of life and everything that our ancestors built for us, and that we honor our history and we don't want to buy into all this government propaganda. And other nations, like this certain country, trying to infiltrate here. I'm definitely going to do a video about why Britain took Quebec, what is known as Quebec now, in the first place. How that even happened, who was behind it. It wasn't Britain per se. They could have just taken the rest of Canada if they wanted to. Did not have to go and take us. But I think I'll make a video about that. I can't go into too many controversies, but I think you kind of get my drift of what this government interference was, or this other country foreign interference was. But yeah, I am really, I don't say bitter, but I am not happy about all of this. I wish that I could have had a proper upbringing in a French Canadian family without all of this propaganda, without all of this trying to rip apart my family history, my ethnicity, my people. And now, like, they're still at it. And now English Canada is starting to realize they're doing it to you too. And here I am, 100% French Canadian, speaking English so well, so comfortably speaking English. Never felt at home anywhere. I don't belong anywhere else but here, where my ancestors had been coming for now getting close to 1,000 years. Here, where my ancestors built. My ancestors' homes still exist. You can go and find the Toussaint house that was built in the 1600s. It's still there. This is our home. This is our country. And no, I'm not racist. No, like, I shouldn't even have to say that. So English Canada, here I am. My name is Joyeuse in French. It is the sword of Charlemagne. I have a history of, yes, the government tried to destroy my culture, my people, starting within my family, and I'm not the only one. But I'm here and back, and I'm never going to change the fact that I'm French Canadian. I'm not Quebecois. I'm French Canadian. That means so much to me. My history, my people, my ethnicity, my, like, everything. And why it's so important to us. And I think you're starting to understand a little bit, just a little bit, where we're coming from. But this is a real thing. And if you see Ottawa is willing to do this to us, I think the Albertans are starting to realize they need to separate, But we have different reasons for that. And yet the commonality is that betrayal of Ottawa. But I will make a video about why we want to separate, why we want our independence, and why we deserve it, and why the rest of Canada should support us in that. It's not a divorce. It's not a divorce. And it's not even like, because, when you have children, a parent has a child, the child grows up and has its own house. It's not even that. We were already our country for nearly 200 years, and hundreds of years before that, this was already a place where Normans had settled and were coming, and had, this was our land for so long. If anyone understands our history, they will be completely like, yeah, I understand. Also, I will read quotes to you from Ottawa, from parliamentary Ottawa, where they, said statements like, oh, let's find it, we need a strategic plan on how to get rid of all the French Canadians. We're going to birth them out. We got to kill them off. It was a genocide on Ottawa to us. And here we are surviving. If you're French Canadian, you're watching this in English, but you speak French and you're here, yes, we need to be our own country. We are our own people with our own history. We never wanted to be a part of this Dominion of Canada. We never chose to join, and I don't think we ever should officially join. We should officially just say we're independent. I don't think we even need a referendum. We should just say, hey, we're our own country, we're our own people. There's a reason why they want to keep us, and a lot of that is economics. Britain had a lot of other countries to go independent, like Jamaica. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that that cost the money instead of making the money. So there's no reason to fear. We are here. We survived hundreds of years of genocide on us, and it's not over. Don't think that they're being friendly to us because it gives us a few rights. They're just appeasing us for now while still pushing some propaganda at a smaller rate, trying to destroy us from within. And the first thing you can do, the best thing you can do, even if it's just for tradition, is go back to church. They did that to destroy you. If we all just go back to church, we can save our culture, our people. And I think that would be the number one thing you can do. Secondly, once you start going, even if it's just for tradition, get to know who you are, your history, God. Why were they Catholic? Real history, not all this propaganda crap. Who were the Knights Templar for real? Who are the Normans? Chances are you're of Norman ancestry, if not you're Breton, something like that. Who are these people? Who are the French Canadians? Who are we? Why are we here? And I'm going to talk about that. But either way, go back to church, realize who you are, and realize being part of Ottawa is never a good plan, and they do not care about you, and they have zero intention of letting this genocide on us to ever end. They cannot genocide us literally. They're going to genocide us any other way possible, and you can see the evidence of that. So that is my strong opinion, and I'll explain all that in other videos. But I don't know how often I'll be able to post these videos because I've got other work to do. But here I am. My name is Joyeuse. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my history. I love my people. I love my country. Quebec is not a province. It will not accept it as a province. It is a country. It always has been. We have not seceded to Ottawa. Never will. And we've survived this long. We will continue to survive. I love my country. And I love the United States, and I love Canada, and I love every country in this world. But, just because I love my country doesn't mean I hate everyone else. It just means I love my country. We all have a right to our own culture, people, and everything else. So, stop the self-hate. Stop the suicidal empathy. Stop listening to all this propaganda. Tune it all out. When you experience real French Canadians, French Canadian life, French Canadian tradition, French Canadian history, you realize you have something to be very proud of and grateful for. So protect your identity, love yourself, and it doesn't mean you hate anyone else. You love everyone, but we have a right to protect our culture and our people and everything. So God bless you. Long live Quebec. Long live Quebec and the French Canadians. And just fun fact, Quebec and Canada are keeping track of us French Canadians, and they have in their statistics that about half of the residents, a little more than 4.5 million residents of Quebec, are ethnically French Canadian. And they keep track of how many of us are proud of our history, proud of who we are, where that means something to us, and how many of us don't, and they're looking for a decline. So the best thing you can do if you want to, beat the system and all that, you just be a French Canadian. Just be who you are. Know who you are, be who you are, be proud. Go to church. We have beautiful church buildings, and it's maintaining our culture and our people and our history. You don't have to succumb and agree with the Vatican or anything like that. Support our churches, support our history, support our people. So your ancestors died for you. Your ancestors made all of this for you. I am proud of my ancestors. Get to know your ancestors. We're lucky here in Quebec that we can find our history. Find out about your history. Be proud of them. And then think about your posterity. And decide, you know what, I want my posterity to be proud of me too one day. All right? God bless you.